Monday, Monday, can't trust that day. Does that sound familiar? That's actually an old song from the Mamas and the Papas. And that group consisted of Michelle Phillips and a number of other individuals. And Michelle Phillips is the guest star in the episode I'm about to review now of Star Trek The Next Generation called We'll Always Have Paris. It was episode number 24. It originally aired on April 30th, 1988. It was written by Deborah Dean Davis and Hannah Louise Shearer and directed by Robert Becker. Now, plot-wise with this episode, after several seconds in time of a replay, and what I mean by that is the beginning of the episode, Picard is actually in a fencing duel with one of his crewmates just for fun, and all of a sudden they see almost like a rewind of what just happened. They have a little dialogue and they repeat it again. So they have a little replay there, which immediately Picard checks with the bridge, and he discovers that the same thing is happening all over the ship. So a few moments after that, Worf receives a distress call from Dr. Paul Mannheim. And after hearing the scientist's name, Picard knows that the time distortion and the distress call are somehow connected. Mannheim and actually a group of young scientists actually disappeared 15 years ago to prove Mannheim's theories concerning time. And that is how Picard made that distinction. We also find out there's another way that he knows about that too. The distress signal leads the Enterprise to Vandar 4, and the crew figures out that Mannheim's experiments in time have gone terribly wrong. In fact, it killed all the young researchers and injured Mannheim himself. So he beams both Mannheim and his wife Janice directly to sickbay, and Picard goes to meet them in the sickbay, and the crew learns something else. Apparently, Picard and Janice, Mannheim's wife, knew each other very well at one time. That was about 22 years ago, and Picard actually ran away from the relationship. They were supposed to meet in Paris, and apparently Janice showed up to meet them in the rendezvous, and Picard did not. And he just went on to his duties aboard a starship, and they never saw each other again. So, back to the plot. Soon the Enterprise experiences another time distortion, and Mannheim, who is still ailing, explains that the experiments have opened a door to another dimension. And if the crew can't seal the door, reality as it's normally perceived won't exist anymore. So Picard decides to send Data to Mannheim's laboratory. Mannheim had a lot of safeties and precautions that he put on in the laboratory, so he felt like Data was the only one who was able to really be sent down there and not buckle under the pressure of all this time distortion going on. And he hopes Data can seal the rip in the fabric of time by placing a precise amount of antimatter into the rift at the exact time of the next distortion. Unfortunately, when that happens, the distortion hits, 3 versions of Data appear, and they're all kind of confused at who's the right Data to do this job, because they each are at different point along the time continuum. So they question each other to who is the correct person, and finally the Data in the middle says, "It's me." And he releases the antimatter successfully and patches the rift. So thankfully somehow they were able to figure out it was the Data in the middle. It's always the one in the middle for some reason. At the same time, Dr. Mannheim returns to normal when this happens, and he and Janice are to return to the research station to continue his studies, but not before Picard creates a holodeck version of their time in Paris. And he invites Janice to this holodeck creation. She marvels at the holodeck and how real it looks, and she's glad to be there because now they can have a proper goodbye. So she thanks Picard for this, and then she goes on her way. And that is the end of the episode. And really there has been some mixed reactions about this. Some, when it first aired, there were the female viewers, a lot of them enjoyed this episode. but the male audience was not quite into it as much. Um, and it may be due to the fact because it was more of a romantic type episode, and of course there's obvious allusions to Casablanca for those of you who have seen that, um, and it really caused a rift between the two sexes, really. But even some of the critics did feel that there was a lack of chemistry between Michelle Phillips um, and Patrick Stewart. So that that kind of crosses that boundary a little bit, and I do have to agree with that criticism. I didn't really see a lot of chemistry there. I don't really know how much acting work Michelle Phillips had. She's more used to being on the stage and singing, but I really didn't sense that there. But I liked the idea that they were trying to go for, to give a little background behind Picard and trying to figure out why he is the man he was. And he says in the episode the reason why he didn't meet up with Janice all those years ago was because he was afraid. And she actually challenges him on this, and she says, "Are you afraid? Were you afraid of the relationship, or were you afraid that the relationship might make you into somebody ordinary?" And he says, "Boy, you know me too well." So Picard's vision was always to be a captain among and exploring amongst the stars, and apparently he was afraid that that relationship would take him away from that dream. So a little insight into the Picard character. So for that, I give it props. Um, I felt like it got a little technical with the B story with Mannheim, but it was kind of interesting to see some of those replays going on. But I feel like, once again, that there could have been a little bit more of a chemistry between the two actors, and perhaps if they had hired somebody who was not just a celebrity, but a really good actress, that might have occurred. We'll never know. But that is the episode. We'll always have Paris. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, guys.